Welcome back to the On Coaching podcast with Magness Marcus. I'm Steve Magness, the coach at the University of Houston and author of the new book, Peak Performance. And I'm joined by my partner in crime, Jon Marcus, the coach of High Performance West. This week, we have a special treat for you guys. Jon and I sat down at a coffee shop in Sacramento, California, in between the USA Championships and just talk coaching for a couple hours. And what we did is we sliced things up and made it into a nice, enjoyable podcast where you get to see behind the scenes, actual input, discussions on coaching, just keeping it real. So we hope you guys enjoy. So it's funny because so at the thing in England, like Dan John, and his thing is like easy strength. Yeah. Like that's his book title or whatever that he's popularized himself. And we were like talking about running stuff, and it was like we had this long discussion on like breaking down strength for runners into like 3 or 4 different things that actually matter and like that you could actually do that matter, and like translating that into like a book idea or like coach's education. Thank you. Idea, and it's like the problem with like strength and runners is that distance coaches don't know enough. It's not like, well, it's not their forte, right? So it's not like our glass of, water. So instead what we do is we like complexify the shit out of it. And then are like, we need to do this drill, this drill, this drill, this exercise, this exercise, this exercise, when like 90% of our bang for our buck could come from like doing A, B, and C and just like in 20, 30 minutes and like being okay with it.
Like your workouts, man, 90% of your bang for your buck comes from doing like a steady stable of shit. Yes.
And it's like, but if you look at the market, like high school coaches, if they just like took this much time and just did the, like A, B, and C, like his thing was like, he was like, I don't know. It was like, I don't know runners very well, but it's like, I don't know, just do some like farmer's walks and some kettlebell swings and some like, depending on what you're looking at.
But this is, I think, even the thing that's wrong with the strength and conditioning coaches. Athlete is an athlete.
Yeah.
Period. An athlete is an athlete. That's it.
Yeah.
We, even as coaches, sometimes over-complexify by over-specializing for an athlete's sports, quote-unquote, demands. And it's like, no, dude, like, just do the basic stuff. Like, that at least can prep you. Like, how everyone's like, oh, well, I'm trying to run, or Brad. Like, Brad's trying to run his marathon, whatever. It's like, what should, try to get tips. I go, Brad, you're in a spot, man. You just run consistently.
Just run. Yeah.
You'll get good. When you start wanting to run 230, that's when you got to do some more, like, detailed things that have a little higher sophistication. And I think the problem is a lot of people don't realize where those levels or those barriers of sophistication exist, where it's like, nope, sorry, it's just basic stuff here. But then once you press or try to press this threshold, now we gotta get more sophisticated. And it's this idea that it's like, let's take the 1500. Like, women's 1500, if you want to coach someone up to run a 440, 1500, very basic stuff. It's not hard, because a lot of people do that. Now, if they want to run 430, it gets a little harder. Not as many people do that. 420, even more harder, but still not as hard because still a lot of people do that. And then when you start looking at like 410 and faster, that becomes a very special space that only a choice number of people in, like, say, the US can do every year, right? And when you're starting to talk about only 30 people in the country can do this, that's a hard thing. Yeah. It's like, take any other endeavor, like the 30 best construction agencies, the 30 best car salespeople, the 30 best investment bankers. That's rarefied air. And yet we think, oh, yeah. It's the same. Improving from 420 to 410 is the same as improving from 440 to 430. Like, no, it's not. It definitely is not.
Well, there's like diminishing returns, and there's also different weak links of what you need to do.
Right, but that's the puzzle game. Is creating the solution to that puzzle, not all the same solutions.
I always say this is like training is very simple in the sense that like you're essentially like shifting your link, like where your weak link is, and just like being like, all right, like we've improved to this, now this matters more, or this is like your hinge preventing you from getting to the next step. And I think the problem a lot of times is like, once you get to that rarefied air, people don't realize what the problems are.
Or two, it's like it's a deep dive. You have to go searching on a deep. It's the idea is like education and knowledge and reading, right? It's the idea that we read the same books. Like if you're doing the same training plan year in year out, you're just reading the same book over and over and over again, and you can develop a deeper appreciation for that book. And if it's a classic, like James Joyce's Ulysses or Moby Dick, you can, or any Hemingway novel, you can appreciate that, brilliance. But if it's just a popular like Chuck Klosterman book, which is a nice book, it's good, but it's just a popular like in vogue at the moment book, you read over and over again, you're not gonna get much out of it. And the hard part is like when I texted you and Danny like that book on I hadn't seen before, like Frank Shorter, like Chasing Gold by Mark Bloom, and like I was like, I've never seen this. It could be kind of interesting. I mean, I did a search online. It wasn't worth the $60 in the store, so I bought it for $10 online. But it's like, I'm going to be excited to read that because here's a candid look at Frank Shorter when he was at his apex, what his thoughts were on training and his progression. And that's kind of interesting because now I want to see what his path was, not to replicate it, just to see, did he share similar downfalls and pitfalls and setbacks as people that I work with today or people that are colleagues of mine work with that I know, and see if there's any kind of consistency of, this is a very similar pattern of delusion or setbacks or adversity, and then understanding, you're going to meet that pattern again even 40 years later.
And that's the thing, is like, it's all pattern recognition.
Yes.
And that's the brilliance of just like experience, but it's also the brilliance of coaching at different levels, because you like see different patterns come around, and the more patterns you're exposed to, it's like, this probably works here because like I've been in this situation, and that's why I love like people who, like in Natasha, who like put me way outside of like a normal pattern where I'm like, well, A, B, and C won't work, so we're gonna have to try and make up like D, E, and F. And like, let's just go, and some of the shit isn't gonna work and some of it is. It's like, but it's like people who push you outside of that, I think, are invaluable in
that's
coaching.
Where we learn the most is we don't know the answer and we gotta figure out a solution. It's like, we're gonna try. We'll see if this puzzle piece fits here.
And there's this great like idea concept in like learning research where they call it like, are you in learning mode or are you not? Which means like, are you open to the information coming in?
Are you open to not knowing?
And I think like that's the big part in coaching, is that it's very easy to get distracted and be like, all right, this athlete didn't, like what we did didn't work, but I'm gonna blame it on A, B, and C, instead of like using it as like, am I open to learning from this? Or will my ego take a hit from like admitting that like something is off, or like what my preferred method didn't work?
Right. And it's curious too, because like you see that like Stu McMillan, we had coffee with him the other day when we first got here. I was like, oh man, he's like, I'm reading this book. He's like, and he just bought it. Like he just said, I read it. Like, Stu, it's very good. You should read it. And he's like, all right, done. Like just the faith in the captain class,
Well,
but Stu is like, he's one of the best sprint coaches in the world, in this day and age, and he's a lot of top grade talent. But also too, it's like he's willing to like learn from someone that maybe not have the same credential or breadth of experience, but just said, this guy's a learner too. I see a mirror, real recognize real. And like the same thing, if he offers a book that's not a new release that's popular that someone's trying to hold on social media, I'm gonna read that too.
It's Stu's best.
And I was like,
he hawks our stuff.
I was like, man, my name's in the book, man. What do I gotta do? My name's in that shit. That's why I tell people, like, why don't you publish the book? No, my name's in it. Let me know when you get to it.
The funny thing, I think it was Ryan Holiday who wrote an article on like how we never he never questions buying books. Like he's always like,
the best investment you can make.
Yeah, if someone recommends I read a book, I go on Amazon and buy it.
Yeah.
If it's like someone that like means something to them,
right?
Or they do.
But the investment of the money, $20, and the time, a couple hours to read the book, is super inexpensive when you think about it. Because great books, like any conversation, relationships, like can help change or catalyze a change in thought.
Well, it's like
and that's what you look for.
That's what I mean. That's the point. Holiday me is like, where else in the world can you pay $20, $15?
Yeah.
And potentially get like a life-changing concept.
Right.
Yeah. And it might not happen all that often, but like it happens if you put yourself in that position to like, and it happens more frequently if you figure out.
Right. And that's what I love about going to like a bookstore or something. Like you go there and there's over 1 million books printed every year. Right. And you go to a bookstore and it's just cluttered with so many things. But if you're there searching, if you're on a treasure hunt, and you weave your way through, the aisles, and you know kind of where and what thing you're looking for. I mean, I've gone to bookstores trying to buy one book and not buy that book I intended to buy because I flipped through it and I was like, oh shit, this is a poser book. And then bought 3 different ones that just happened to be in the same area and ended up being some of the best ones I've ever read.
I did that actually while I was in England last week. Because I actually love going into bookstores there because like they have different selections.
Yeah, no, and like old school ones, like that's how I found that. I texted you back in like January that Bannister Sub 4 book that was signed by Roger.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it was just in an old used bookstore, and I was like, it was signed by Roger Bannister, and it was $25. I go, this is a steal. But
I love doing that because it's like this past week I went out, looked at this like book that everyone was hyping up on like talent and stuff like that. I skimmed through it and like at the very end of it, they had this chapter on like where's the future going in terms of like sports and talent ID and all that stuff. And like there are 2 summary points. One of them was like essentially like Moneyball, sabermetrics is the future, and we're like planned and ready to go there. Mm-hmm. And this is what we're doing. And like I read a couple paragraphs and I was like interested in the book beforehand, and I put it down. And then like just browsed and found this other book that was on, again, nothing to do with sports psychology, and another one on philosophy that
Right. And I don't know these people who like have to finish the books. Like I buy it and you read it and it may be like super shitty. I'm like, why do you have, like I walk out of bad movies, I close bad books. Like if it's something that's a more popular thing that doesn't really have anything to say and they're just repeating one good idea for like 200 pages. Like I got the concept, dude. I'm done. 50 pages. I'm out. Every time I read a book, it's like the author is requesting me to continue to read every chapter. And if chapter by chapter gets better, then I continue to go. Well, but if they don't prove their worth every chapter, then I just say bye.
You know what? It's funny, like having just gone through the selling of the book process. Like when Brad and I wrote ours, we set out there and said, all right, like literally we said, all right, we want people to get something new out of like every chapter that we write. In the sense of like, we're not going to sit here and make this argument and belabor this point for like an entire book. Like our idea is like, not everyone will get everything that we want, or not everything will like agree, but it's not for everybody. But we're like, we're going to put new like our concepts that we want people to get in every single chapter and introduce it and like kind of bring it to crescendo as best we can, because like that's what I want out of the book. Right. Like
you're writing for a you.
Yeah.
And it seems narcissistic and a little egotistical, but it's actually that you know that type of person.
That's what I wrote. That's the science of running for.
Yeah.
Like I was like, you know what? I mean, at that age of my time, I was just frustrated because of like, I want like a deep dive on running. And that's all I want. Yeah. Like this is where I'm at. I'm in grad school. Like just finished up. Like I want a deep dive and just go crazy on it. And I couldn't go crazy on it. Right? I couldn't like go that far in.
Right.
So I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna write this shit. Yeah. And
No, that's what I would do, man, if I had like more of a lottery, or like if I started making like real adult money. It's like just being like, I ain't buying cars, I'm not buying like, vacation homes, I'm buying like the good books, because you don't realize it's like Hemingway wrote like A Farewell to Arms, rewrote that thing 50 times. There's everyone's like, oh man, Hemingway was good. Like, no, he belabored over that thing, every word, everything for years. And when you understand that depth, then you're like, oh, this is good. Or like the dude who wrote The Captain Class, like 11 years, and he was figuring out. He started with one narrative of a story he was trying to tell, but then it became, the evidence showed him it was something else that was the definitive thing of what made a dynasty a dynasty, but and it changed over a decade arc.
Yeah, and I think that's like, everyone wants like these quick answers on these things.
Bullshit. That's some bullshit.
But you know, the funny thing is, like, if you were to look on my computer, like, I probably have 4 or 5 different like books like in work right now.
Yeah.
In the sense that they're just like either just collection of like concepts and ideas that fit together and I want to hit, or in some cases like maybe like 50 pages of writing on like an idea. And I always do that, and I'm like, nothing's at this point in my career, it's like I'm not like, all right, I'm gonna write this and formulate this. It's like this process of like, for instance, right now I'm working on something of like the stress response and adaptation, and like moving forward past like Cellier's like very basic model and trying to like map it out. And that's like, I'm writing about it, but it's like my way to like gradually conceptualize it for myself and like dig really deep into it. And it like changes over the 3 or 4 years that I've had it, and it's gonna keep changing.
It's like map making. Yeah, I mean, the early maps, when you were in a pioneer mindset, they were very basic and straightforward. And the maps are not the territory, right? But the maps help guide you through the territory. And as we got more sophisticated and understood, you know, the landscape better, the maps got better. And there's also different maps, right? And you see that, and people are like, oh, well, you shouldn't even do it if it's not going to be the right thing that no one can take. Like, no, it's part of the process. Like, you're just helping another step. Like, it's like DNA decoding. It's like, you know, finding cures for cancer. It's like, all of it is a step in the path to the ultimate pinnacle. And if you get to play even the smallest part to help that, that's great, because you might not be the one who cracks the code, but the person who cracks the code is standing on the shoulders of everyone before them. And that's what people don't realize. You know, that's the most valuable thing, is being a contributor to that.
I've always said, like, if you understand even like the history of training, and you see like how we got here, you realize like, oh shit, dude, like we're doing this. There you go.
This book, much fun.
You're like, we're doing this because like these guys experimented with this in like 1960 and said like, this is good.
Like, you know how important this book is like, I'm putting sticky notes in it, and I'm not writing in the margin, because I'm like, one, it's written by Ron Clark, rest in peace. It's like, but it's like one of those ones, because I usually just muck them all up.
Me too.
You know, but I'm like, this one, I'm like, can't do it. This is my favorite. Like, he started to train for it. He had no coach and no schedule. He trained according to how he felt on each day, and sometimes he rested. He trained alone, late in the evening, because he was not home from the office in Newark, New Jersey until after 6. Then he was occupied with the children until their bedtime. At about 10 o'clock, he ran to the park. Or he's preparing for quiet in bed. Georgian suburb of Glen Ridge. Sometimes telephoned the police to report a man fleeing from their house wearing a pair of underpants. One night, when a policeman investigated at the park, he found Osvetler running a race walker also training, and another individual collecting worms for fishing. Now I've seen everything, said the cop. It was always close to midnight before Horace was in bed and asleep. This is the guy who last won a gold medal in the steeplechase. Yeah. He started training for it, had no coach and no schedule. Brilliant. I'm going to tweet this right now.
It's a good one. That's what I want to turn my Instagram into. I'm slowly doing it.
Yeah, it's just like
these pictures of books.
Yes.
It's gonna... People who actually want to see pictures of people, beware. It's like Instagram is just gonna be...
But, I mean, it's like, man... Something like this, like, you know, like this book, you gotta go find it. Like, you got to know what you're looking for and know it exists, and you have to happen upon like the unforgiving minute, and then realize, oh wait, wrong Clark. And then Norm Harris's other book that he has, the like the athlete of nothing, or like
this is stuff like books like this.
Like that's the one I want, right? Yeah. It's like this is a timeless classic for like the uber nerd.
And the problem with this is like in the running world, like books like this aren't written nowadays.
Yeah, I know. Why?
Like not like you never see books like this. You never see like books like Run, or like you know what I mean?
I mean, we should bring those back. We need to bring sexy back. Like that's the next thing that needs to be written, because it needs to be like, a little snippet on Allen, a little snippet on like Selinsky, a little snippet on Shalane, a little snippet on all these American like dogs who were like pioneers, who just were like, we don't know, we just were the first ones to do it, and we did it, because
no, I know.
It's more simple than.
It's demystifying that.
Yeah.
The crazy. I always tell Alan, I was like, one day I just want to publish your training log.
I still have one of his training logs. Like, he just gave it to me now.
I have one too.
Yeah, I just love how he just like, it's totally Alan, like super meticulous with the log.
Yeah.
Like it's very detailed. Like Alan, you're like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, how are you like this coherent and detailed with everything?
Well,
but the funny part is he just gave it to us and then forgets.
Yeah, no, I know.
It's one of my favorite artifacts.
I love pulling that out and just like showing my college kids, because it's just great. It's like, here's some perspective. Like, here's what like it took for him.
And I mean, he was just super talented, but I had no idea. And he probably could have done half of it. But he thought he had to do all of it,
Yeah.
But that's what I love about it, is he was pioneering. And that's why, like, remind Eleanor or like people in our group, is like, we're misfits who are pioneering. Like, we're making our own path. Like, it's not hey, here's this contract, here's this money, here's this group, here's what everyone else is doing. We're just getting on board and being a replica. We're actually making our own way in the world, which might not get all of like the attention and hype and popular kudos, but much more rewarding. Long-term, deep, personal level. And like, if you're not on board with that, then you weren't meant to do it.
Exactly. And that's what you see a lot, is you see that like contrast between like people who like get on the path, and those who like want to appear like they're in the club. And
Eleanor's like, yeah, race. I go, yeah, I have plenty of thoughts on the race tomorrow. She's like, Alicia, I go, will you listen? Because last time you didn't listen. Like, I'll save if you're not gonna listen, I'll save your breath.
We should again, there should be a book on like the mentality of racing, the psychology of racing.
We just like of championship racing. Like,
yeah.
That would actually be very good.
Well,
yes.
It's like I watched actually on Twitter the other day a couple of exercise physiologists arguing over their fatigue models and stuff like that on racing, and they were showing like split patterns and like of races and time to exhaustion and stuff, and arguing whether racing was like time to exhaustion test or like you had kicks at the end and what all that meant. And like, these are really smart guys and guys I respect, but it was also like, guys, like, show up at a track, watch these guys race like 5 times, and you'll see like fatigue isn't fit in this model that you created.
Yeah, like,
because it's like
the lactate levels of
it doesn't, because they were arguing over like
Tosh was fatigued at the US half champs. Fatigued.
Yeah.
Like, I thought she was done.
Yeah.
And then she canes back and she cranks, and she was so compelled. And then what she do, get across the finish, like her whole body had to like purge itself of like all the toxins, right? And that's what happens. Like, when you have so many toxins in your body, you vomit. And you do, drink too much alcohol, or you do it when you go that deep. Like, that was deep.
So that's like, I always say when people ask like what my talent was, like it's cliche to say, but like when I was on my A game, like when I was running in high school, for example, my senior year, and like I had the really breakthrough, I threw up after almost every single race. In college, I didn't do that. And I'm not saying like, oh, I wasn't trying as hard in college, but like...
Well, how many races were you in contention to win
Yeah,
in
exactly.
college? And it's that difference of being a competitor. Being a competitor is like, I'm up there, I'm going to win, so I will go deep. In high school, you're in contention to win every race.
Exactly.
In college, it was like, ooh, everyone's good.
Right. And it's like, oh... And I think that's what the thing is. It happens on this conscious and subconscious level. And I think that's the point on like fatigue with the researchers. I think they got to get is like, they're like, oh, they're starting to slow, like they're fatigued. And it's like, maybe. Or maybe they're just like creating the pain face right now. And like...
Well, but also too, it's like, look at someone like Emily Sisson. Emily Sisson has not got it done for 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Like, and she's training with, one of the best track 10K women ever in American distance running. But she's not got it done for 1,000 days, however many days you want to call for years. Now she gets it done because she comes to a moment where she's like, wait a second, I want to be the best, and I've been in those positions and not gotten it done. And instead of backing off and being like, I suck, she's like, how do I do this? Teach me. And that's what the good ones do. They say, teach me. And then you're just like, well, this is what it takes. And either you're on board and okay with that, or you're just like, no, it's really not. I didn't want to try that hard.
I didn't sign up for this stuff.
I didn't sign up for it. It's, it's kind of like, I give Jerry shit all the time. I'm like, hey man, Jerry, you ever lose your job? He's like, nope. Must be nice, because I have. Not for any good reason ever. It happens. Like, and it's bad luck, and it's like nothing wrong with me in luck. Bad at what I do. It's just the circumstances of the environment. People didn't recognize or give a shit about what I did. They didn't know my value. It's not that I don't have value. It's just that they didn't recognize it. That's fine. We'll continue to do what I'm good at because I know I'm good at it. And hopefully, somewhere down the road, eventually, someone recognizes that, or I figure out a way to get the monetary exchange for it. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
And I think it comes back to like what we were talking about earlier, with like that book and defining like success on stuff.
Right.
Because I think a lot of times people have this skewed like definition of success, and they'll define themselves, if I get fired or if I don't do this, like now I'm in this failure category.
But success is not titles, man. Success is achievement. Like that's the problem. It's people want this title, like I'm the director of this, or I'm the CEO, or I'm the manager, executive, whatever. And it's like, but man, what have you really done?
So here's the thing. So did you fill out the survey when you got your credentials for USA coaching?
Yeah, I just looked at it and I said, I was like, I told Terry, Terry, like I haven't done any of this.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, I coached a national title person on the roads and some Olympic trials qualified. I'm not good. By your survey, I was like, I'm not good.
It's interesting though, the like way they categorize things.
And I was very curious. I was like,
because you had like, were you a head coach or like a coach on like officially on one of those things?
Yeah, on one of those. Did you get picked?
Right. So again, it's like the definition of success is like being picked on this team, which has very little to do with like
your resume and your merit and your
coaching things,
right? Yeah, your expertise
and like
your actual skin in the game.
Another one was like, do you have like an IAAF coaching certification, right? Or like governing body, whatever. And then like I didn't check that, and it was like, have you done level 1 USATF? I'm like, nope. It's like, okay. And then like another one was like, I think it was like years of experience at university or like this stuff.
Yeah. Have you been
director
or like an assistant, whatever?
Yeah, for like 10 years or whatever it is. And like I'm looking at these things, and like it's just interesting how they're defining success to categories for like this.
Yeah, well, they're trying to massage the prerequisites to be an effective elite coach.
Yeah,
and they already have. It demonstrates they already have a working model. Because if they want to do a real survey, they would send an email out and they'd say, "Describe your path." Describe how you got up. Describe how you learned. Describe this.
Well,
and then they'd sit down and like ask and read the descriptions about how you came up.
Well, it's like, what was it? Oh, The Science of Emotions. Like, it was this really good, compelling book on how emotions are made, but it looked at like the history of like categorizing and like researching emotions, right? Mm-hmm. And it was really interesting because like when we looked at emotions and then like tied to like facial expressions like surprise or sadness or whatever, the initial like how they came up with that is like the researcher sat there and like had actors like mimic what he thought like surprise looked like, and then like took a picture of that. And then he went out in the field and like gave people these pictures of like what he thought contrived to measure different things. And like the author's point of this is like, we didn't create, like, we're defining like these facial expressions connected to emotions based on like someone's conceptualization of it, instead of sitting there and going out and doing the hard work of like asking and measuring and figuring out like what these mean.
It's like it's decoding it. You just came with a perception, and you're just trying to like reinforce your current perception or your bias instead of actually decode and see what's up.
It's the same thing. Like, I'll give you another example. So in the science stuff, like I wanted to measure like almost like thought processes during workouts and races with my college kids, because we do a lot of crazy stuff like that. But beforehand, I just sat there and asked a bunch of them. I was like, what do you think about during a workout? Like, where does your mind go? Like, are you focused on your watch or whatever? And then from there, I just like created a survey with that data. You know what I mean? Like, I just was like, all right, here's like 20 different things that people have told me that they think about, and we're going to use these categories, and then like I'll also have like write in your shit. So it just became like their thoughts became the category, instead of like me artificially creating like those definitions, which I think happens all the freaking time.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing. It's like we want to reinforce what our bias is, because we just want to be proven right. It's like it's confirmation bias. So I think it's this. So I'm gonna like manipulate everything. So I'm going to do a study. I'm going to put all this time and energy, and even maybe you might be aware, or maybe mostly unaware of that, conscious or subconsciously. But you want that reinforce that bias instead of just being proven like, oh my god, I'm so wrong.
It's just fascinating to me, like how our definitions impact so much. It's just, I think that it's probably one of the most overrated or underrated things in like coaching, is both like your coach definition of what you're trying to do, and then like passing that away.
You're trying to teach, and it's engaging. At the end of the day, you should be trying to teach. You should be employing different tactics to get the best response from a teaching adaptation standpoint, whether it's physical or psychological or a relationship based. And you got to push, and you got to pull, and you got to back off at certain times. And everyone's different, and you got to figure out like the right time to do it. And sometimes you might fail miserably, and then you learn from it. And sometimes you might succeed wildly, and you learn from it. But everything's an N of one. You know, and then it's this confluence of just being able to like quickly, like there's a lot of bullshit, and then you got to like cut through all of it as quickly. It's like grand chess masters, right? Because they're grand chess masters, there might be in an end game scenario, 20,000 moves they could do, but because they've practiced and have an acute awareness about all the unsuccessful moves are, they can will the 20,000 moves into 19,925 unsuccessful moves. And so then they just think about the 75 potentially successful moves, and then they whittle that down to like what's out of those unsuccessful. And then all of a sudden now they're rapidly thinking about 4 moves. And they're spending their time, they're thinking about 4 moves, versus the novice is thinking for a long time about the 20,000 moves. And it's like, dude, worried about the wrong things because you didn't do your homework, you know. But that's the thing, because you practice and you fail, you practice and you fail. It's all of that in one. You can cut through all the, like how we talked about the steeples today. Yeah. We looked at who's in the field. We looked at, okay, great. Here's the positioning. Here's the egos involved. Here's the credentials. People are informed, not informed. Here's what their psychology is. A lot of like newcomers who don't know what they're doing. A lot of the old vets, and this is how they're going to do it. They know the game. So, hey, how we doing, Lawrence's? Good. You guys came to the right spot. They got Portland beans here. Yes. You know,
yeah.
And it's like, and so we can now. You and I can look at this now and just be like, this is how it's going down. That's 10 years to like have a 5-minute discussion.
Yeah.
And an accurate 5-minute
because you have to watch so much to like understand.
And you have to be here watching over and over and having skin in the game.
Yeah.
And having skin in the game, and then seeing your propositions or your people failing because of your bad advice early on, and then learning from it. Like that's the most important thing, is like skin in the game. It was like that thing that kid that used to coach in college took a picture of me at Track Festival. It was a torrential downpour, and you were like, skin the game. Like I didn't like say anything. I just I saw it. I was like, yeah, he knows, because everyone else is hiding. I'm like, no, there's a meet going on, and I gotta set this shit up right. Well, I don't care if it's downpouring. Like,
it's kind of like it was funny at our conference meet. They almost set up the steeplechase barriers in the wrong thing. Yeah. So like literally my grad assistant and I hopped the fence in the conference thing. All these people are yelling at us because they're like, you can't be anywhere, and we're just like over like you messed up like raising shit. And it's like
well, the athletes self-select, right? As they self-select.
You've got a shot.
Yeah, and I just call this meet, it's an advancing meet. You're only here to advance. You know, even the final, the U.S. final is actually a prelim for the Worlds. You know, and so that's all it is, because the regular season is advancing. We put on all these meets. We have you guys, you know, we give you all these, go here, it's perfect weather, blah, 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 blah. That's just the preliminary of advancing to the U.S. champs. And then it's advance, and you keep it. The only final is the World Athletic Final. That's the only true final that exists, the only one. Even the final here is not a final. It's still a round for Worlds. That's all it is. And when you realize that, then you can make really acute and intelligent decisions about, you know. But that's the thing. Like, it's not I make the Olympics and then I'm set for however long. It's like, are you a working professional? And what a working professional means is you show up to make money. And so you can continue to show up, so you can continue to show up, so you can continue to show up. It's a meta game, right? And so you might be blessed to have a contract that has really good bonus incentive structures, so you can go to these races and make money to continue to go on, or you go to races that have prize money that allow you to keep playing the game. Because if you're a working professional like a Bob Dylan, right, you make new music, you make new albums, you go on new concerts. You don't want to be like the Monkees, who are still playing the same songs from the 1970s in Vegas now as a swan song act. There's no new content for the last 40 years. But the old fogies are still going to go see you until you all die. Because we're not going to go see the Monkees because we didn't grow up with that. But Bob Dylan is still relevant because he's been writing for years, decades. And you can like a new song, and then a new song now will, like, you know, spur you to go back to his old stuff.
Yeah.
But that's the mentality. You guys say, I'm a working professional, and that's what a working professional does, is seek opportunities to continue. And it just always boggles my mind, these people who think, okay, I made it, I did this really hard thing, and now I'm set. Definitely not. Because you look at musicians, I equate, like, we are a lot like musicians. You have to keep going on tour. That's how the musicians make their money, is going on tour. Not by putting out some album or some music video. That actually just makes their sponsors and the record companies money. They make the money on tour. And there's this whole ecosystem behind it. And they keep going on tour because they need to get paid. Or you can be like a Lady Gaga who like has to put all her money into this epic tour. And it might not pay off. Like, people don't know that. Her first big tour, she had to self-fund. And she put everything she had into it. And if it didn't pay off, she was SOL, bye-bye. But it was awesome, you know, because she just brought everything. And that's what this is. This is like the big tour, and you have to bring everything. Because you bring everything, and then you make it, you're good for another year. And that's the game. People don't understand that's the game. They think, oh, if I do it, then I'm good for 4 years. It's like, no, like you see like infield. Like Emily just like brings it, and she knows how to bring it one race a year.
Yeah,
so she can keep playing it for one race a year. So you can keep playing for one, but it's one race, and it's the right race. You know?
Nails it.
Yeah. And
Every year I'm like, oh, she can't pull this off.
And I'm like, yes. I'm always like I was talking with Danny, like he's like, man, Em hasn't raced. She's only paced at like Pedro. And I go, she'll make the team. She'll make the team. And I go, they're like, how? Talent. Yeah. She's just that good. I remember I proxy coached for one time, like when she was in Portland, and after a lot of injuries, and Jerry was in Europe, and Jerry's like, have her do this like workout before Wharf to Wharf, 10 times 200 by herself at the Nike track. Okay. How fast? Like 32. 200 jog. So I'm like, hey, just give me the watch. I just want you running. I don't like people running 200s with a watch on. It just makes no sense. So she just runs, and she's just skipping, and she just hadn't been doing it any workouts, just like running around Wharf to Wharf cold, mileage for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
All of them were 27 point. All of them. All. Every single one. 27-1, 27-9. And I wasn't being generous. I was spot on. I was just like,
You're good.
You're good. Like, I mean, that's what Michaela does. She's a too flat person, you know? it's like, and you're in 10K. She thought she was running 32. Like, it was like, she thought. And some people are just blessed with that physical capacity. But, you know, it's a double-edged sword. She can't ever stay healthy.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's this hard balancing act. And everyone has their own adversities, you know, in place, whether it's relationships, physical, mental, right? And we all got to overcome it. And that's the great thing about what you guys get to do, like, tomorrow and, like, the next day is just, like, you get to overcome all your shit in public, which is fun. And sometimes, most of the times though, you don't. and
sometimes you do.
But the promise, the hope is sometimes you do. Yes. And it's in the public setting that makes it fun, because like a lot of people don't see people failing in the corporate world because it's in offices behind closed doors, or it's in meetings, or you got fired. But
you're really just exposed.
It's super exposed. That's what you gotta love about it, man. If you're not here for that, man, go home. Just go home and sit down.